Hello everyone. My name is Isabela ARGENIA Wagey, and my student ID is 241011060003. In this video, I will explain about crossing numbers of graph, one of the concepts in graph theory. This topic discusses how edge intersections appear in a graph and why minimizing crossings is important. Based on the assignment instructions, the topic is determined using the formula x equals the last two digits of the student ID modulo 3 inches. My case, the last two digits of my student ID are 03, therefore 03 mod 3 equals 0 because the result is 0. The topic assigned to me is crossing numbers of graph. In this presentation, I will explain the definition of crossing numbers. Before discussing crossing numbers, we first need to understand what a graph is. A graph is a mathematical structure that consists of vertices and edges. Vertices are represented as points, while edges are lines that connect those points. In the example on the screen, the glowing white circles labeled A, B, C, and D are the vertices, and the blue lines connecting them are called edges. Graphs are commonly used to represent relationships between objects, such as computer networks, transportation systems, and social connections. In graph theory, understanding the structure of vertices and edges is important before learning about crossings and crossing numbers. In graph theory, a crossing occurs when two edges intersect with each other. However, crossings are not counted if the edges meet at a vertex, because vertices are considered normal connection points in a graph. When a graph contains too many crossings, it becomes more difficult to read and understand. Therefore, reducing the number of crossings is important to create a cleaner, clearer, and more organized graph visualization. In this slide, we can see the difference between a graph without crossing and a graph with crossing. On the left side, the edges do not intersect with each other. This is called a non-crossing graph because all edges are connected clearly without overlapping. On the right side, two edges intersect at one point. This intersection is called a crossing in graph theory. The red glowing circle highlights the crossing point where the two edges meet. Crossings are important in graph drawing because too many intersections can make a graph difficult to read and understand. Therefore, graph layouts are usually arranged to minimize crossings and create a cleaner visualization. The crossing number of a graph is the minimum possible number of edge crossings that can occur when a graph is drawn on a plane. In the left illustration, the graph contains many crossings, highlighted by the red circles. Because there are too many intersections, the graph looks more complicated and difficult to read. However, in the right illustration, the same graph is rearranged into a better layout with fewer crossings. In this case, the number of crossings is reduced from 5 to only 1. This demonstrates the concept of crossing number, where the goal is to draw a graph with as few crossings as possible. A smaller crossing number makes the graph clearer, more organized, and more efficient for visualization and analysis. In this example, we can see a graph where two edges intersect at one point. In the center, the highlighted red circle represents the crossing point where the two edges meet. Since there is only one intersection in this graph, the crossing number is equal to 1. This example shows how crossings are identified and counted in graph theory. Different graph arrangements can sometimes reduce the number of crossings, making the graph easier to read and more visually organized.